This one simple concept will help you scale any system that you build 10 times easier. You don't know how many companies I talk to that they think their structures are working until one day everything fails. A rep doesn't update something in the CRM, a submission form doesn't link with your Airtable, or maybe a lead gets lost. Suddenly, just everything breaks. If you don't understand this one mental shift, one concept, the second you try to scale your business and your systems, they will all fail. And I'm not going to be talking about the tools you're using, I'm talking about how you think. Every single online business works on tools such as Slack, Notion, Airtable, Google Sheets, a CRM, etc. These tools, they do their job until you try to grow. You set them up, you connect few things, maybe you even automate a few tasks. And at first it works and there's nothing wrong with that. But the moment you add volume, whether that's more leads, you hire more employees, or overall gather more data, it breaks. Not because the tool is bad, but the structure behind it was never designed for the actual growth. So for example, if your CRM wasn't built on clear logic, automations work on scrambled together, and the entire system doesn't communicate well enough, everything feels fragile. But there's one mindset shift, one concept that solves everything, and I call it thinking in databases. Now, this is not about coding, not about being technical, but it's a structure, logic, and it's how the entire world and business operates as of this moment. Now, in order to build a proper scalable structure, you have to understand it first. So let me just break down what is a database, right? A database is a collection of related things. This is essentially a place where we store our data. And what is a system is how those connected things get the work done that we need. Now, if you're on business, you already have both. You have submission forms, you have clients, you have payments, you have employees, etc. Now, the only question is, was this connected intentionally, or is it like whatever you came up with, you built? That's essentially it. When your business is small, messy setup works, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when it grows, you need your system to think in relationships, and that's the entire idea behind it. So objects that are properly connected create scale, and objects that are not create breakdowns. Simple as that. Now, hopefully you kind of get the concept, and I'm going to show you 3 quick examples so you understand it fully. But before I do, I just want you to show how databases actually think. At the core of every system, whether it's library, CRM, Twitter, or any other tool, there are relationships between pieces of data. So there are 3 main relationships you have to understand. First one is one-to-one, so one user profile to one identity. One-to-many, one book has many pages, for example, and many-to-many, which is multiple authors to multiple books, etc. Once you understand this and you start think of the system in this way, like what relationship is where, it's going to click instantly, and it's going to be so much easier for you to actually build a proper system right off the bat. Now let's start simple. We have a book, right? Book like this. Each and every single book has multiple pages, aka it is one-to-many relationships. Imagine you are building a system to track books. The way you would build the database or the structure is something like this. So we have one table that tracks books, right? So we would track something like title, author name, and maybe a genre. Another table would be pages, and each page would be tracked individually, meaning we would look at the text, so the content of the page, maybe page number, and also which book this page relates to. Now, if it's a physical copy like this, it's obviously going to be connected, but if it's going to be digital, there should be, for example, like an ID of the book they can relate to. Now, this is a scalable structure, meaning that whether you track one book or a million books, it's going to be always the same. Performance is going to be the same, and the way you search for a certain stuff is going to be the same. But the unscalable structure would look something like this. So you have only one table where you track all the books, and you track author, the title, as well as the entire content of the book, meaning you would, let's say, copy paste all of those 300 pages and you would put it in one field. Now, what happens now is that if you were to look for certain information, for structured information, you can, right? So like if I wanted to search what happened on page 293, I can, or it's going to take so much time. Now let's move on to another example. Something we all use is Instagram. In order to use Instagram, you have to create an account. Therefore, you become a user. It's a separate entity object, a table just with users. And we'll track something like your IG handle, your name, your email, the date you registered, and how many followers you have. User can post multiple posts. And what we track about a specific post is what type of content, how many views, how many likes, when was it updated, what the type is. So is it a normal post or is it Instagram Reel? And the relationship between the post and the user. So who created the post? So you would track like ID of the user back to the post. And then obviously we have comment section. So a user can comment on a post. Therefore, we track something like, and again, this is very simplified, but we track something like content. So what's the text of the comment, how many likes it got, and who was the actual creator of the comment, and which post is it related to. Now, all of those objects or tables are linked together, creating the clear relationship. And that's what allows, Instagram to work and scale at, huge measures. Lastly, let's go to the business and look at the CRM. So in this example, let's use Go High Level. So each and every single CRM holds information about your leads or clients, right? So in this instance, contact is the table. So we track something like name, phone number, email, how many deals are assigned to this contact, as well as how many appointments. Now, another table is, for example, deals. So we track that. So that's a separate table. We track what's the value of the deal and which contact it belongs to. And then we have appointments where we track maybe when it starts, when it ends, who are the participants, and where's the link to the Zoom. Then we also have conversations, which conversation consists of multiple messages, etc., and then links back to the user. And a user, we track email, for example, name and access level. So you can invite someone and give them only partial access, so they cannot create, for example. And this is unfortunately where most systems break. Now, with something like CRM, HubSpot, Close, they give you the foundation of, connecting on the back end what is going on with each and every single contact and email and deal and appointment, etc. But because people don't think about relationships, they still screw up the entire system. And if you scale with higher volume, it will break down eventually. For example, automations in Go High Level. Automations are a direct extension of your database structure. A lot of people want to automate a bunch of stuff, but they don't have a simple foundation or simple database behind it. Therefore, the automation is never going to work. It's not a tech problem. It's just a thinking problem. The system didn't break. It just wasn't built for a higher scale. So there are two questions I always ask myself when I'm structuring a database or system for a client. First, will this information, this object, be stored multiple times? This helps you understand the relationships. So for example, one lead or one person can attend multiple sales calls, multiple appointments. And another question is, will I document more than one thing about this? So this bears the question of, should it be a separate object, separate table, or should it be just a field? So first example is there's only one thing to be stored about an email, the email, nothing else. So when you go into a CRM to a specific contact, you have a field email. That's not going to change. There's not going to be more emails. But another example is there's obviously more information to track about an appointment. When did it start? When does it end? How many participants? What participants? And what is the Zoom link? I want to make something very, very clear. There's a huge advantage in having your data organized. How many times we went into a business trying to build a tracking system, and we obviously don't want to start from scratch with all of the data. We don't want to wait months to actually make proper decision. We want to import some past data so we can start making adjustments right off the bat. However, many times there's either have to be a huge workaround to get the data, or it's going to be incomplete data, or it's going to be inaccurate data, or there's not going to be data at all. When you have something like this structured right off the bat, with even like a simple foundation, the data later on can be leveraged to an extent you cannot imagine. You can spot bottlenecks that wouldn't really be able to see if you did have a messy CRM setup, for example. So whether it's a book, a Twitter, Instagram, your CRM, the second you understand how to map and connect these objects, you unlock a clean system, smooth automation, and scale that doesn't snap under pressure. This applies literally everywhere in your business. CRM structure, Airtable, Notion, Zapier, Make, client management, team accountability, anywhere. If you don't think in relationships, you're building a system that will break under pressure. You've already seen a database before, many, many times, thousands of times, I would say, but you just didn't realize it. Again, this isn't about being technical, it's about being logical. It's about knowing that every rep, every deal, every metric is somehow connected. And once you start thinking like that, your systems don't run, they scale with the proper structure. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.